Welcome to the Gibberpish Podcast.
Well, we may not be the CEO of YouTube anymore, but we're here to talk Gibberpish, aren't we, Dom?
Yep, we felt the need to step down because we didn't know what we were doing, but no one seemed to notice.
Yeah, we were kind of winging it and improvising, and all of a sudden we just kind of found ourselves in charge of things. So we
Yeah.
made a bunch of sweeping changes and really didn't gain any community trust, and then did weird half-assed backpedaling interviews, apologizing to the community but not really saying sorry. So yeah, we're here now, with arms wide open, telling
we're,
you that
we're here to apologise.
we're going to take some time off, focus on our health and family, and then retire on the billions we made from advertising revenue off of
Also-
other people's hard work.
Shit like that always reminds me of Burniston, the sort of BBC Scottish comedy sketch show.
Vaguely, I don't think I watched it though.
It was very hit or miss. It was very kind of Tune the Fat took off, was amazing. Burniston followed up, and it was good, but it was very, very hit or miss. But one of the good sketches that he did was the single issue candidate. And he was like, my plan is to try and get rid of the traffic lights at a certain roundabout. And every sketch he's like, okay, so I hear what you're saying. You want to have free school lunches. How far away is your school from this roundabout? And eventually, at the end of the sketch, he goes, well, I believe I've went as far as I can go. I have to resign as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. I only started here only joined in to try and get rid of these fucking traffic lights.
The definition of falling upwards.
Yeah. British politics.
British politics in a nutshell. Not to get political, but we're fucked, mate.
Yeah, we're screwed.
I sent you a YouTube link ages ago. I sent a lot of crap your way, but I sent you a link to Muse. We are fucking fucked. And if
Yeah.
Muse are singing that, we might actually be fucking fucked. Like, it may not be a joke anymore. We may be actually in serious trouble.
Yeah, I think it's no longer a joke that Broken Britain. I think Broken Britain might be something that we strive towards.
One day, we aspire to be merely broken, rather than
Yeah.
whatever the hell is going on now.
rather than on fire.
Yeah, I mean, if people wonder why obesity is rising, why drinking problems are getting out of control, if people are not really interested in pushing themselves and being as physically active as they used to be, or seem stressed out all the time, you can point to some things in recent history, and it's a strange conversation you have to have with people that say we are actually not okay right now in the UK, and it needs a little bit of work. And unfortunately, I don't trust anyone involved, I guess, to actually fix our problems these days. So
Yeah, I reckon not to say I reckon we should solve it ourselves, because that just incites some kind of revolution that I don't think anyone in the UK could be arsed with at this point.
yeah,
I just reckon we need to be we need to kind of make ourselves be arsed again, because right now we're in this kind of state of just let him do it. No, the last time we had that, we got Boris Johnson and Liz Truss for about a
Nigel
week.
Farage.
Nigel Farage. Now we've got Rishi Sunak. Maybe
Yeah.
we should be a bit more discerning. Maybe we should actually get bothered about all this shit.
Yeah, it's definitely long overdue. And actually, one thing we could have mentioned at the start is this is the first episode in a post-Nicola Sturgeon world, I guess, in Scotland, because our first minister's gone as well. So yeah, that one, not that surprising. I mean, we talked about this off mic. Personally, I think it's for the better. If you're pro the independence referendum, if you're pro, like, it's weird to say nationalism, because nationalism is now tied up to so many, it's always been tied to so many bad things since 1939. But I'd say, like, the Scottish nationalist identity is not based on any kind of race or group identity. It's based on, we want away from England, leave us the fuck alone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as long as you're not English, Scottish nationalism poses no threat to you.
Yeah.
And even if you're English, you just go, oh, just say your uncle was Scottish and we'll be fine with it. We're not looking into it that deeply. We just want away from Westminster.
Yeah, we just want our money to be our money for a bit longer.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's head of the Scottish government left, or is leaving. She's on the way, I think it's like March, mid-March, late March, before the replacement's announced, because they have to have their own internal leadership debates and whatever, and then we get a new first minister who'll do fuck all for a couple of years, then retire as well. So
Probably. Although I will say that Nicola Sturgeon tried to do something, and no matter what she did, she just got she just got dumped on.
Yeah, when you're the leader of a small, like, let's be honest, Scotland is a minority group within the United Kingdom. So if you don't get all the leeway you think you deserve, it's because you're a small fraction of the voting population. And
Yeah.
I feel like the English press were very good at pointing to her and saying, look at this Scottish rabble rouser are causing all these problems, and then just covered her relentlessly, knowing that the longer they filmed her, the more tape they'd have where she was either making a gaffe, contradicting herself, or just generally screwing up. And then that's just, that is what it is. The more footage of you out there, the more you're likely to be found saying something or doing something that's going to come back and bite you in the ass. And I feel like the English press realised that very quickly and just started recording everything and broadcasting everything to make you feel like Sturgeon was everywhere all at once. But that was one thing that came up with my family's discussions of what happens next was, hey, like, who is actually there? Who who can you point to in the Scottish government that is a good candidate to take over? Because Sturgeon has been everywhere for the last 3 to 4 years. And I can't name most of the other ministers in Scotland.
Yeah, I mean, she's been, I think she, what, 3 terms? 12 years or something? She was First Minister?
I don't. This is where we find it's been actually only about 4 years, and just time has been compressed for so long. Oh, you're actually a lot closer than I thought you were.
How long was it? 10 years?
Nicola Sturgeon, Scottish politician, serving as Scotland's first minister and leader of the Scottish National Party since 2014.
No, well,
Yeah. So, I mean, that's where Scotland is right now. Don't ask us too much about it because at this point we're on the verge of tears and drinking. But, I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair, it doesn't take much for that one.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's where we're at right now in the UK. But hell, it could be worse somehow.
Make no mistake, if you're not in the UK, know what we're saying is the truth when we say it could always be worse. Like Boris Johnson could come back and he could be, I'm dumber than before. I was in a boating accident.
Good news, the propeller hit me twice.
Good news, I found out I can run this country without a frontal lobe.
Right, guys, this time I'm going to try and do it blind.
This time, I will give all my directions into a voice modulator, and whatever the voice modulator translates my speech to will be what passes.
And somehow he'd still have about 40% of the vote, regardless of what he ever did.
Yeah,
It's fucking insane. Well, I mean, in times like these, Dom, what offers you comfort so we can just drag ourselves away from the politics of the day? Because it'd be nice to have a conversation that wasn't about that these days.
yeah. I mean, what usually offers me comfort, because I feel like every time I talk about Critical Role, I'm either talking about how good the Legend of Vox Machina is, which you should all go and watch it. It's pretty damn good. Or I'm either saying something like Matt Mercer's Scottish accent pisses me off or something. But no, it's the fact that there was a 5-hour episode uploaded recently, episode 49. Yeah, 49. 5-hour episode.
49 of season what though?
Season 3.
Right, okay.
So yeah, season 2 was something like 550 hours. Season 1 was, about 300 odd hours. Season 3 is looking likely to exceed that because it was, like I said, 5-hour episode today. 3 hours of that was people on an airship planning random bollocks, and then it was occasionally interspliced with little character moments that made it worth it. Then all the cool shit happened at the end. I'm like, no, they're in an airship and they're entering some kind of magical storm. Like, I want to see more of that, not 5 hours of well, we should go and talk to this guy and get some items, or we should go and talk to that guy and get some potions. And I'm just sitting there. If my hair wasn't already grey, it would have went grey in that second. But
what podcast app do you use for your stuff, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
Spotify. But I don't watch Critical Role on Spotify anymore because I suppose one of the only upsides of being unemployed right now is that I get the time to just sit and watch this on YouTube. So I just sit and watch on YouTube.
Because I would have been hammering that plus 30-second button because I use Podbean.
I used to use them. I used to listen to it on Spotify, and Spotify have a speed up button.
Yeah.
So I'd been sitting with that at 3 times speed, just going, okay, yep, okay, right, and there's a battle, slow it down. And that's not to say I don't dig Critical Role when it has this kind of slower character moment, because when characters start talking, it's the same in video games. When characters slow down a bit and they start talking, that's where you get some really cool parts of the game. Like in Resident Evil 2 Remake, having Leon, who's, the kind of wet behind the ears, fresh newbie cop, talk to the kind of very sly, very much more intelligent Ada Wong. And then Leon's just kind of going, oh, you played me. And Ada's like, no, you're too smart for that. And finally stands up for himself in that bit. I love seeing shit like that, but in Critical Role, it kind of only really comes alive during those points, and those bits are kind of few and far between now. It's mostly just kind of, well, what do we do now? Let's figure this shit out.
Yeah, it's
Figure
more
it out
about
off
See, you're more into the character moments, whereas what you're hearing is the kind of the decision making of the gaming process,
Yeah,
which is kind of boring. It's fun to be there in the moment with your friends, working out how to solve the problem of killing a necromancer. But
yeah,
sitting there listening to it as an outside observer, please edit this a little bit for me, please. Just a
yeah,
little
and
half-hour chunk taken out would save me a lot of time.
yeah, and that's my point. That's kind of what I wanted to come to. I get that in a real D&D game, a D&D game that you're actually playing, part of the nuts and bolts of it is literally each person setting down their bag of tricks and just going, well, I have this, 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 and this. What can we do with that? It's like, well, I have that, that, this, and this. And they go, oh well, if we combine that, we can do shit. Part of any D&D game is the planning.
Mhm.
You can't really get around that. It's like trying to tie your shoelaces while they're not on your feet and still in the box. It doesn't make sense. If you're putting out a show every week and it's a bloated runtime already, and you then bloat it even further by leaving all this shit in, are you really, putting out the best experience that you can, or are you just saying, well, that's part of the experience, and saving yourself a lot of editing?
Yeah. Although a part of me does commend them for releasing a 5-hour episode when everyone's attention span is down to like seconds at this point.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it. Everyone's saying that's the best episode that they've seen in a while because it was slow. And what I like about this campaign, as opposed to campaign two was literally just, here's a sandbox, go and do whatever the fuck you want. Campaign one was very kind of linear because they'd already started the campaign off stream, then let it build and build and build, and it got to the point where they just had to say, right, this is where the story is going to go. There's going to be a bit of railroading, but you can still do whatever you want in that situation. Campaign two was just kind of, here you go, do what you want, and I didn't really like that. I didn't feel like there was a through storyline. But in
Yeah.
campaign three, they've kind of tied in each character to a main overarching story, which I prefer a bit.
But it's the trick of having a game that's supposed to be open ended and an experience to be lived in for several months at a time versus producing a finished product that's entertaining someone stepping into it for an hour a week, say. And I think some people would lean heavily towards cut it up and chop it into pieces as quickly as possible and then just take out all the dead air, the little spaces at the side. And then others would be saying, no, let's just enjoy the entire experience. But I guess do you think there's an audience for like a Kai version where you just cut out all the fluff?
Personally, no. I personally think that I am in the minority in this instance. I think that all the hardcore. I mean, I'm a Critical Role fan. Although I'm very hesitant to call myself a critter because I don't like titles like. But there are some
It also
hardcore.
sounds really dumb.
Yeah, and there are some hardcore Critical Role fans that will watch the same episode 2 or 3 times in the week, and then before the next episode comes out, they watch it again. Like, so there are hardcore motherfuckers out there that will want to see each one of these character moments. For me, when I play D&D, when I play tabletop RPGs, I hate the planning stage. I hate the shopping episodes. I just want to get into the talking to other characters. I want to get into the story. I want to do quests. I want to do puzzles. I want to fucking roll some dice. I want to do some damage.
Yeah.
I hate the whole, well, let's go here and we'll investigate the room, and then we'll investigate the brickwork in the room. Right? There's a player in my Pathfinder group. There's a player character. I'm not going to give his name because, well, you're not going to fucking know who he is, and protect the innocent. Because I'm going to tear him apart here. He is the worst motherfucker for being meticulous when it doesn't need to. I'm in D&D anyway. I'm a very, very much a buy the ticket, take the ride type of guy. I'm like, fuck it, let's go in here. It's like, you don't want to check the room? No, fuck it, let's go. I'm
Do
probably
I
a
detect
nightmare.
traps? Do I detect magic? Nope, let's go.
I play magic in Pathfinder. They have a class called Magus, which is kind of like a Witcher. They've got magic and they've got good martial capabilities. And I have shit like detect magic. I have a counter spell and shit like that. I don't fucking use them unless I'm in combat because I don't want it. Like, it ruins the fun for me if I'm that meticulous. Because I think take it on a bit of a serious tangent. I'm a lawyer. For the next however many years of my working life, I'm going to be meticulously pouring through documents, pouring through cases. I don't want to do that in a fucking tabletop RPG.
Yeah, you're
I
gonna
don't
be
want to go
having.
hook.
You're gonna spend your 9 to 5. If we're going to be only cut it down to 9 to 5, having every shitty little argument that can possibly be had under the sun.
Exactly.
Why am I taking this home with me to have fun with my friends? This is
Yeah.
not how we do things.
And this one player character, he's so paranoid and he's so invested, and he plays the game in such a meta way that he roll a sense motive check or an insight check in Dungeons and Dragons, and the DM will say, "As far as you can tell, it looks good." And from that sentence alone, he goes, "I've clearly missed something. I'm going to go and investigate everything in the room again and come back." And if that happened to me, I'd just be like, "Cool, looks fine to me." And then I get the whole, "Dude, what are you doing? We can't go in there now." I'm like, "Dude, fuck it, I will go mental if we have to stay here and investigate sand for 20 more minutes.
But how many grains are there? What's that mean? Can we divide that by a prime number? What does that mean?
It's at that point in the game I'm glad that I usually go neutral good
Yeah.
because I'm a good guy. I'm not going to kill you, but if you get in my way, I will move you from my way. And I have spells like hold person, and I was just going to go, okay, I'm going to hold person, and I'm going to move you to the right because you're clearly getting in my way. I want to figure out this puzzle. I don't want to, spend 20 minutes going around the puzzle with a little wooden hammer trying to find traps. No, give me the key.
I like to do be like, I like to backhand John if he starts talking shit again.
Oh, I have gotten I've never actually done this yet, but I've gotten to the stage of rolling the initial checks to hit him with a fireball. Because it gets to the point, it's like, oh no, before we go in, can we just do our detection? Can we check for traps, detect magic, detect alignment, detect good and evil? It's a fucking door.
What about
Just
the door
go
hinges?
through.
What about the door hinges? What about this dick? Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. It's like there's a gazebo in the room. You have angered the gazebo. Like, fuck the gazebo, burn it alive. Yeah, I think that might be why I wasn't as big a fan of this last episode of Critical Role, because all the other episodes there hasn't been too heavy on the planning, and it's been quite a lot of action, and it's just been really, really fucking good. But this one was just a kind of momentum stopper in the sense that like 48 really good episodes, and then 49 was just and slow it right down.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes with Matt Mercer, especially, you get the shopping episode where it's like he feels like he has to make every shop keep a different character, and you're like, can we
Yeah.
not? Can we? We don't need to hear the alchemist say, "Oh, welcome to my shop, young people. I've procured a fine and mighty concoction for you. Just it'll be 5,000 gold." And they're like, "Oh no, how do we get 5,000 gold?" And it's like, just sell everything and buy the fucking potion. I don't care.
Yeah. I will put my hand up and say when I first started DMing, I did come up with different characters to run, different stalls and shit like that. But since starting, I'm hoping to start a new campaign at some point. I've literally just automated everything. So when you go into a shop, it's run by automatons. Just because I don't want to do that whole, oh, you go in here and here you find old Fitzbang, the Forge Master, and he's got 6 teeth and no hands, yet somehow he makes all the best weapons.
How are you doing in my shop, kids?
He uses the hammer with his foot.
Yeah, that's it's the kind of the temptation, and also we've talked a lot about the Matt Mercer effect, where everything's a character, everything's a scene, everything's a whole shebang. Whereas it's like, no, you're not an actor who's using this as a side bit to get extra work and recognition. This is, you're a D&D player. You're a scientist in your spare time. You're the IT guy. You're a lawyer in your spare time. This is not acting class. Get on with it.
Yeah, and I always find it funny how deep the Matt Mercer effect goes, because I've spoken to some people that I used to go to uni with that play D&D, because lawyers and Dungeons and Dragons, there's a hell of a lot of crossover. But 75% of the lawyers that I know played Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop RPGs at some point. And I think it was in my 4th year of uni, one of my mates came in and he just looked, he kept checking his phone, answering some messages, and just shrugging like, dude, taking this too far. And I just asked him, what's up? And he went, oh, I was at D&D last night. I was like, oh, how'd it go? And he went, yeah, we did this, did that. But folk just kept crying. What? And he went, there was this like really kind of emotional scene, and they were getting all thespian and shit. And I just kind of said, so what did you do? And he went, I just sat there quietly, and I was like, okay, now that that's done, I want to go here. Yeah, that must have been pretty awkward. As I've always said, if you're a fan of Critical Role, don't inject that into your home games. Like, don't just start going, well, it's my turn, and I want to lament about my dead hamster. Frederick was a good boy, although he liked the anus too much.
It's supposed to be fun, and I guess that maybe for some people that's their idea of fun, but
yeah,
other people have shit to do.
I just don't like it. I just don't like it in the sense that I don't want to get that heavy in a fun game about fighting dragons and casting spells. Like, if you want to go all thespian and start saying I use this for the this is for my dead familiar gopher Terence who saved me from the dark demon Beelzebub.
Like,
okay,
buddy,
I'm just going to be over here making dick jokes and throwing fireballs.
Buddy, you're opening a door. Calm it down.
Yeah. The door's not going to kill you. Stop casting sense motive on the door.
Although, just because you mentioned The Witcher, I'm listening to the audiobooks for Andrei Sarkovsky's next series called the Hussite Trilogy. It's interesting. It's good. I like it, but I hate the main character because he's too much of an idiot.
All right.
It's a weird problem where he's basically led her in by his dick the entire time, which is, all right as a character trait, not the worst thing I've ever seen. But he is just constantly being helped out by fate, which is a
Yeah.
problem where like the character himself has nothing to do. He is just there to be pulled along by the currents of fate. I mean, even he noticed that he'd been abducted or had changed hands with like captors or been rescued about 5 times in the last 2 weeks. Yeah, you kind of suck as a character. You don't have your own agency. You're being stuck with like just anyone who happens to bump into you just so happens to be either trying to kill you or your best friend or some combination of the two.
Hmm.
But it's had a few interesting moments. I'm now in the second book, and I was really hoping he did seem to kind of mature a little bit. The first book, he literally is just like that 18-year-old who thinks he can do no wrong and just stumbles through the world cock first.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts with him being caught in bed with someone else's wife. Oh, here we go.
Hmm.
And it has gone downhill since there. So
Yeah.
he has he's been involved with witches and nightly tournaments and stuff like that. It's a combination of like 1400s Europe and the magical world, which is an interesting combo. Because for most of the books, magic isn't real. Obviously, it's during the Dark Ages where the Inquisition's roaming around the countryside, picking up anyone who isn't a good Catholic in the middle of a Catholic and Hussite schism. So there's like a Christian like religious war going on within the areas of the book. And that's a key part of the books itself. And then you have a guy who just so happens to also kind of know magic. He, I think, he at one point joins like a witches' coven and joins like their big solstice party and stuff like that. He hangs out with alchemists and stuff, and those parts are fun. But at the same time, you're dancing with the devil here, mate. You're in a bit of serious shit, and you're too stupid to get yourself out of it, or even recognize you're in trouble to begin with. But
Yeah.
I've been told that he does eventually by book 3 grow like half a brain cell. So I've got my fingers crossed. But it's written by the guy who did The Witcher. Just because you mentioned you've got a Witcher style character, and I'm like, I can't figure out where this guy would be in a game of Dungeons and Dragons because he's not quite the bard. He's not quite. I suppose actually, yeah, the magic he has is kind of. He knows minor magic for healing, which he studied at Prague. Apparently, you can just go learn that shit in Prague. But he
They're
has
magic people, apparently.
yeah, he he has the ability to do like minor healing, minor incantations and stuff, but never actually got all the way into mastering it. So he can like I think he, at one point removes like a kidney stone from somebody's bladder, but that's about the most he could do. What a shit tier mage. But yeah, I think you'd enjoy the Hussite trilogy. I wonder what it's like reading it if you have more of a Catholic upbringing because we were raised Protestant, so there's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff about old school Catholicism, which I'm like, I wonder how that sounds to people who have more of an education there. Because all the European stuff's fascinating, like all the different counts and all the different duchies and all these viscounts and all the like larger political stuff I'm vaguely aware of. But there's a lot of like niche stuff in there that I'm assuming somebody with a more educated background in Catholicism could like really get into.
Yeah.
And this was recommended to me by somebody who's like somehow more of an atheist than I am. So we don't really have a lot of notes to compare.
Yeah. Just when you're saying about like the kind of the 18-year-old character who's just kind of going with it, brings me on to one thing I wanted to talk about. I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast, but there's yet another Fire Emblem game that's dropped because Nintendo just wants that money, apparently.
Yeah.
I'm kind of going through a bit of the same thing with that, and the storyline and the characters I do not give a shit about. The gameplay, unfortunately, is probably some of the best Fire Emblem gameplay that I've seen in a while. There's different aspects to the game, different sort of fusion mechanics and stuff that I'm really digging, but the characters are so fucking white bread boring that I do not give a shit about them.
How bad are we talking here? We're talking like the whiny self-insert protagonist.
No. We're talking the overly optimistic, excessively cheery, nothing ever gets him down anime protagonist.
Oh, disgusting.
Literally, at one point, uh, after a huge defeat, he'd be a bit downhearted. He just kind of goes, the only thing we can do is brush ourselves off and get them next time. I don't think we should be so hard on ourselves. It's like, dude, your mother just died.
Bro, that was your mum who died there. It's okay to be upset about this, Jimmy. You want to talk about it a little bit?
And he has no emotion. I mean, I'm hoping that there's some kind of breaking point where he just kind of goes, you know what? All this shit's coming back to me. I'm just going to go buck wild on anything that comes in front of me. I'm going to hack it to death because right now I am just boring anime protagonist.
That would be awesome. I like that on the Discord. I didn't catch this initially, but you've sent me a meme of Christian Chainsaw Man.
I was just saying that on Twitter and I thought, Christ for arms, holy shit, what is this nonsense?
It's a man running away. It's a Christian tape of. I don't know if you've ever seen much Christian media, like the American Christian media stuff. It's fucking fascinating. It's people trying to argue that people are being indoctrinated by Satan, and the only way to counter that is with good Christian programming and education, which is also indoctrination, just the other way.
Yeah.
It's pro Christ except for anti-Christ. But
I like that they make a point of saying that on the front of the video they threw beans on him. Why would throwing beans on him do anything?
Hey, it's a movie about an important lesson.
Yeah.
It's its own. They threw beans on him is its own little window.
Yeah.
It's very important. This movie contains bean throwing scenes.
Be wary. Trigger warning: beans.
But it's put as Christian Chainsaw Man, and
Yeah.
I find it interesting that you're annoyed by this protagonist because they're so nice and lighthearted. When people have started to notice, even in like shonen shows, like the shows for young boys that are supposed to be lighthearted and optimistic, they're supposed to be about something good in the world, because that's what we grew up with. Like Goku could be anything if he just trained hard enough.
Yeah.
Naruto could do the same thing. Luffy from One Piece could do the same thing. He just had to try harder, and he would overcome the obstacle. They've noticed now in newer shows that are coming out that that's just not a thing anymore. Denji from Chainsaw Man is just dead to the world because his life is so shit. He's so out of luck and so like screwed in the long run. He's given up on life. The idea that is a maybe not a typical shonen protagonist, but the idea that that's a protagonist today in anime is like, we should like that's something of note in a genuine sense of like that's a shift in the culture in Japanese media, and yet we have it still in this video game where, hey guys, we just have to try our best. No, fuck off.
Yeah. At one point, a character's father basically gets fed to the big bad, and then his body gets, resurrected through dark magic, and then his son has to kill him. And instead of offering some kind of reassurance, he says, "We need to press on. We have a task to do." Dude,
that you just killed your own father. You all right with that? Like, I know we have things to do, but we can take 5.
yeah, no, they don't even say that. He just kind of goes, "Okay, we should head on. You know what? Deal with that. You know when? Okay, no, we're going on to the next fight." Thank Christ the gameplay is good because this story is chugging concrete.
I now really want there to be like a psychotic break moment. I want him to beat someone to death with a slab of concrete. Like he just starts punching a guy and doesn't stop until he can like punch through the guy's face.
The character's called the Divine Dragon. I want him to turn into a dragon and just start burning the fucking countryside.
Yeah. It's that does not sound like there's a mix of like just bad writing and then like unhealthy ideas. That is somehow all of them put together in one, and I don't know why your character would act that way.
It's weird because Fire Emblem games have often been all about sort of character interactions and how the characters, deal with it. And one of the first Fire Emblem games that I completed, Fire Emblem Awakening, you are literally it's basically like kind of isekai type shit. You're dropped into a random world and you kind of try to figure out who you are, and there's a bit of doubt and there's a bit more well-rounded characters, I'll say. And then the next game after that, which was Fire Emblem Fates, you're literally one character torn between your birth nation and the nation that adopted you / stole you away in the middle of the night. And again, there's really good character moments in there. There's well-written characters because you're forced to choose between nature and nurture. And then Three Houses came along, and it's just right. you're a teacher who used to be a mercenary, and it's all about you kind of reconnecting with people, learning how to use your abilities for their benefit, type of thing, and how to settle a dispute between, I think, three different groups of people that you've all taught in some way. And then you come to this one, it's just my mum died, so I'm going to go and collect some items and bring her back. Okay. Someone clearly focused more on visuals and gameplay as opposed to story, because this story sucks.
That's not even like the B team story. That's like the D team wrote that one. He's sad, but he's not really sad because his mom's died, and so he's gonna save her. Yeah, save her.
Yeah.
That'll be the good idea. Oh God, what are you doing? Why did you write it that way? And is there anything because sometimes like you have a bland protagonist, but you've got like a good world building scenario, or you've got good side characters or something like that. There's something to redeem it. Is there anything there that you're like, okay, well this sucks, but that's good?
Character wise, no. All the other characters kind of range, like the emotional range of the character goes from, bland anime protagonist in the player character, and then you've got the kind of more emo type characters that I don't deserve to be here. I tried to kill you all at one point, but if they say I'm good, I have to be good. And then there's other characters that are relentlessly optimistic, and then there's other characters that are just flippant. And as for the locations, they aren't spectacular. It's the whole point of Fire Emblem Engage is that you're literally using rings that contain the spirits of other Fire Emblem protagonists because nostalgia.
Yeah.
So there's nothing really exceptionally original about it except how the game plays. Like everything's good about it. The only thing that's really good about it is how the game plays. It's like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Game plays amazing, but the characters look like crap. The storyline's a pile of shit. But I keep going back to it because it's a good playing game. And in the case of Fire Emblem Engage, I just kind of want to finish it so I can move on to Like a Dragon Ishii.
I'm looking at the web page for Fire Emblem Engage, and yeah, I can figure out which character's which based on looking at the poster.
Yeah. So the main character's the VTuber looking one with the blue and red hair.
Funny you mentioned VTuber. I'm almost certain this is the game where the protagonist was designed by someone who designed VTuber models. I think I want to say it's Hakos Bales' designer, but I can't say for certain. But yeah, I've seen people make jokes about the designs looking like VTubers. Although the chick's pretty hot, so it's got that going for it.
Oh yeah, most of the female cast in that game are stacked, but it doesn't. If you're in it for more than just that, it doesn't distract for long much.
Yep, it is. It's the exact same designer as Hakos Bales, and you can tell that by the hairstyle. For some reason, it's always the hair that's a dead giveaway. But yeah, it's a shame because that, in terms of gameplay, looks pretty decent. Although it's funny that like it says "Behold the heroes of legend," and it's it shows you your character next to Marth. And I'm like, oh yeah, Marth. Yeah. I remember him. Yeah, and it's you say it is exactly that. It's every protagonist so far is in a ring that your character can use to save the planet.
Yeah, or bring Mum back, because what else you do? You can either resurrect, you can either stop war in the nation, bring world peace, or you can bring Mummy back.
I wonder which one they're gonna choose.
I mean, if it's my choice, I'm stopping the war, because one thing I've noticed about games recently, and I'll bring up a fairly obvious example, is that whenever presented with a choice, I can always dictate which choice they want me to make, and I will always automatically make the other choice. For example, Resident Evil 7. You get the whole point of Resident Evil 7 is you get a random email from your missing wife, and Ethan Winters, being the good guy that he is, goes out to try and find her. Typical Resident Evil shit happens. You get trapped in a mansion. At the end of the game, spoilers, you get the choice between using the vaccine for the virus that they have, virus that the characters have. You can either use it on the woman who's basically been saving your ass and been guiding you throughout the Baker Mansion selflessly, being just a real mensch, or you have your wife who, through the course of the game, stabs you in the hand with a screwdriver, attacks you with a chainsaw, and cuts off your left hand. Because it's your wife, the game kind of says, "Yeah, go and save your wife." I did not do that. I got the bad ending
No,
because
fuck her.
she
She's
cut off
going
my
into the
hand.
naughty corner. I had a similar experience. I didn't realize I was in Far Cry 5. You start the game arresting the cult leader. You can choose to not do that, and it turns it from like a 40-hour experience to a 5-minute experience. But that's a canon ending that you walk up, hear all this stuff, and go, you know what? Not worth it today. Just gonna walk away.
Yeah.
Roll credits, and that'll do. I'm like, yeah, fine. That works for me. I guess I'm happy enough with that. It's interesting because it's a hidden like third ending. There's options about how you end the game, but that one was like, oh, there's a secret third ending where you just give up and walk away. I'm like, I want that ending. I want to just see it happen, and it's oddly enough that's considered the good ending because the other endings end in nuclear war. So yeah, technically the good ending, I guess.
So I guarantee if Fire Emblem gives me the option to resurrect your mother or stop the war, I'm stopping the war.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
He didn't give a shit when the mum died. Didn't give a shit when the dad died. Did we really want to resurrect them?
Yeah.
Do you reckon that might be it? That might be the whole thing of like, I wonder if anyone will call him out on it and say, hey, you didn't react to you stabbing your own father in the chest. Anything like, what is the deal with that? Do you reckon it's because he thinks, well, I can resurrect them. I can just save them. I just get a legendary hero ring and put a soul back in their body. The mummy will come back. Maybe that'll be... I wonder if they'll address it. I don't think so. But it'd be interesting if it came up as a scene of like, you stabbed someone in the chest that you loved.
Yeah. I guarantee you, they're not gonna consider it. The game is going to end in typical Fire Emblem fashion. You beat the bad guy and everything's good.
Speaking of games that won't end in nuclear warfare.
Okay.
As a hard tangent. But I started playing Slime Rancher 2. And I said, I really enjoyed the first game. And he said, there was a first game.
Yeah. Slime Rancher sounds like one of those games that came out in the PlayStation 1 that, you know, everyone ranted and raved about and I didn't really play. But you're saying it's on Game Pass?
The first one I played it on Game Pass. The second one just came out at the end of 2022, and I was like, oh, I'll get that when I've got spare time and I have a week off work. So I was like, I want to just hang out and be comfy. So I've started playing this the sequel. It's been pretty good. It's more of the same. I mean, granted, I'm only 3 hours in, so I'm figuring out the economy and figuring out how to be as efficient as possible because it's a game where if I make a mistake now, or if I make weird decisions now, it will come back to bite me in the ass 10 hours later when I'm finishing the game. The idea is that you're literally just a farmer who harvests slimes and you feed them. You take I want to say it's like a waste product, so basically you take their shit and you can sell it on the market because it was like crystals. So you can gather different types of slime from all across the map, bring them together, crossbreed them, and then you make different... sounds a little bit like, for some reason, Logan Paul's NFT thing he was trying to do, Crypto Zoo. I'm like, this doesn't sound fun, but it's a very relaxing, chill game. It's technically a first-person shooter, and there are enemies, and you've got a health bar, but there's so little threat. You can avoid threat at any time. The game settings actually allow you to include or not include hostile enemies, because it's just that type of game. You're just hanging out collecting slimes. It's more about the kind of resource management and the economy side of things. So it's not the game I typically expected to enjoy, but I played the first one kind of on a whim and was like, oh, this is really good. And then heard there was a sequel and was like genuinely excited because I can't wait to play more Slime Rancher just with different problems to solve. I mean, right now, the map is a lot bigger, but I've got to go and unlock it. And there's more exploration, which is different. That wasn't really part of the first one. And then I feel like I need to find out if I get another base to work in or if I just have this one area. Because if I'm working in this one area that I've started in, I'm in trouble because there's only like 8 building plants or 8 kind of processing sites. And I need to make food and I need to house and, feed my slimes and get the waste to sell on the market. And if it's all in those 8 slots, I am in trouble because a key to winning the game is diversifying the income that you get. So you have, like, the crystals go up and down in value based on how many you produce. So if I overproduce one type of crystal, it's worthless because I flood the market. And alternatively, to get economy back on track, I have to find another type of crystal to sell. So if I have multiple types of or multiple slimes producing multiple different types of crystal, it makes the game a lot easier. But now it's like, if I have to pick and choose, I'm so fucked. I am so in trouble because I looked at the board earlier and having unlocked the second area of the map and therefore like half the total types of crystals, all but one was in the red. Like they were all losing value quickly. And I was like, oh shit, I need to fix the problem. What do I do? who do I feed? Who do I scrape the crystal poop up from? It's a weird, very strange game, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could probably find like playthroughs of the first one and see if that'd be your type of thing. But
Yeah.
The comfy vibes type of game is very appealing to me. For some, obviously, like talking about all the stuff going on, it's like, what's your comfort food? Well, mine is slimes, I guess. But yeah, I'm playing around with it now. I'm figuring out the tech tree as well because there's a lot of upgrades and expansion options. So it's kind of like, what's going to make the game easier for me to play? Because I say I'm here for the comfy vibes. If I have to walk all the way across the map on foot, backwards and forwards, I'm gonna lose the will to live. So I'm gonna just try and find the easiest way to get from point A to point B.
Just when you said like comfy vibes and stuff, it's something I never really got the concept of in games because I've never really thought, oh, I'm going to relax and play some video games. Now, if I want to relax, I'll stick the TV on or read a book or something. But then this recent kind of influx of over the past 5 years of comfy games, like games like Stardew Valley and Harvest Moon and shit like that. It's a weird concept to me, but I mean, if people like it, people like it. I'm not here to shit on anybody's good times. But the one weird one that I did hear was someone played No Man's Sky because they called it a comfy game. Which I suppose if you're just in a spaceship flying through space, occasionally you land, mine some shit, then fuck off again.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those games that determines your playstyle, determines the experience you get out of it. You could just race for the center of the universe, or you could go through each planet and build a base and make like installations and hunt the wildlife and try to catalog everything. Or there's a variety of different ways to approach that game. So I guess you could find a way where you just kind of, I guess, a tourist, space tourism.
Yeah, going for a fly.
I mean, if you want to play a comfy game, it's just one of those situations where you're like, you know what? I don't mind what happens today. I'm just going to enjoy this weird, light, casual game. It's not going to be too, um, input sensitive. It's just going to be something to kind of relax, and I'm going to just kind of zone out for a bit. I normally have like, I say, an audiobook or a podcast playing in the background where I don't have to be giving 110% to the game. It's not about the inputs there. It's about, I can take, I'm still doing something, still enjoying something interesting, but I'm doing it at like half capacity. But I've always enjoyed stuff like, first person shooters or fighting games or, puzzle games. Something that's very kind of input based,
Yeah.
Whereas give it a go. You'll find something out there. I've never been one for what were they called? Walking simulators.
Yeah, I've played too many horror themed walking simulators because you're probably the same. When people find out that you like a certain thing, they keep recommending things to you. And when some people that I used to hang around with found out that I really, really liked horror games, horror films, all that shit, they started recommending me things. It's like, oh, play Amnesia. I'm like, all right, I'll play Amnesia. Played the first one, good game. Second one sucked, and I never went back to it. Then they recommended Outlast. Oh, is this another horror game? I'm like, yeah. What kind of game is it? And it's just a walking simulator.
No, but like when you turn a corner, there's a guy there and it's like, "Rah!" Yeah,
that's totally threatening. I'm like, no, it's not threatening. It's just if I get caught, I'm dead. I can't fight back. That's the whole point of a horror game. That's why I like Resident Evil so much.
Yeah,
if you get caught by a zombie, you can fight. It might not work. It might work. There's that element of chance, that element of risk. It's all about item management. I've got 3 bullets, but there's 5 zombies. Am I going to just try and shoot them, or am I going to wound them and run past them? Whereas walking simulator, you can run away at which point, because all the monsters have superhuman hearing, they can just catch up to you in an instant and rip you apart. And I can't fight back, which is not fun.
Yeah, I remember Outlast being out as the biggest, the newest horror masterpiece. And you're like, is this really horror, or is it just like, surprise, here's a fist in the face?
Yeah. It's the exact same reason why I don't like Five Nights at Freddy's. This isn't good horror, it's a jump scare.
Yeah. I'm sure we must have talked about this, but the use of jump scares in horror, in terms of movies, is so ubiquitous. It's just such a non-start because now, as experienced horror fans, we know when it's coming. We know the setup. We know the why
Yeah,
the all of a sudden it goes silent for 30 seconds before the jump scare, and all of a sudden we get the kind of shrill violin of just kind of ring, like it just kind of as the thing appears on screen to start screaming and roaring.
yeah.
And the same
I
thing
think
applies
as
to
we
video
said,
games. Like you can see it coming a mile off.
yeah. I think as we were talking, I think we spoke about this when we started talking about horror films on Netflix. If you get an award for the most jump scares in a single film, and you call yourself a horror film, that's you're not a horror film.
Yeah, you're
Jump scares are
bored.
not
Like,
good horror. Just like random noises is not good comedy.
yeah, like if think about it in terms of comedy. If your only joke is you kick a guy in the nuts and you brag about having the most guys kicked in the nuts in the single movie, you've not made a good comedy movie. You made a fun YouTube compilation. You've not
Yeah,
made a good like horror. You've not made a good comedy film. There's more aspects to comedy than kicking a guy in the nuts. There's more aspects to horror than jump scares.
yeah. If your whole comedy act is you ragging on the current president, you're you're a bit writer for the fucking Daily Show. If anything, you're not a good comedian.
Don't knock the Daily Show. You're
That's what I'm saying. You're trying to get a job on the Daily Show. You're not trying to base your whole comedy persona on one joke.
I'll permit Stephen Colbert, but but not the Daily Show. Although to be
Yeah,
fair, old school Colbert, that man was throwing absolute haymakers, and it was
yeah.
glorious.
And again, I'm a fairly big fan of Stephen Colbert. Is he a comedian? I'd say he's a comedian, but
Yeah, I'd put him in there. I mean, his stuff on the Daily Show and the Colbert Report is fantastic. It's when he's moved to this kind of the nighttime show host. That's when it's all just kind of gone really weak sauce type stuff.
yeah,
Where he's obviously been told you can't really swing those punches anymore. You'll get us in serious trouble. But yeah, I'd still say he's technically a comedian.
yeah. I've just got a bit of respect for him because he's another one of those that, like, I will fly my nerd flag proud because it's what got me my start. I'm not going to hide it from anyone.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but it's like his Tolkien knowledge is
Yeah,
on another level. And like he had some interview, and somebody tried to pull some bullshit on him, and he said, "Well, actually,"
yeah.
proceeded to level the fucking guy. Oh no, you've really fucked up here, haven't you?
I've seen a few interviews with Stephen Colbert when someone comes in and tries to say, actually, no, I know this about Lord of the Rings. It's like, well, I read it every year, so let's go.
I read the Silmarillion interview. Why? Why do you do that to yourself, Stephen?
Why would you torture yourself like that?
Go outside. um, I actually, speaking of books, I'm giving some away, and some of them are going to you. I think.
Yeah,
I'm getting rid of my 40k collection of most of my stuff. A friend from work has gathered most of them after a certain point, so she's already called dibs on the last like 6 or 7 books. But there's still a ton of audiobooks there as well.
yeah,
I say my audiobooks for some reason my preferred medium, just because probably because I can do more than one thing. While while I'm listening to the audiobook, I can do something else. But I was looking at the audio, like the book collections I have, and I was like, oh, some of this is still pretty good. I don't want to go back into 40k,
yeah,
as much as I used to be, because I was in too deep, like way too deep.
yeah.
But having the collection out and going through it all again, you're like, oh, the nostalgia's kicking in a wee bit there. Although it did lead to the fascinating discovery of Ultramarine, the 40k movie.
Yeah.
Holy shit! I can't wait to watch that again. I've got the collector's edition of the DVD because Blu-ray wasn't a thing, or wasn't really that much of a thing when it came out. But yeah, I've got that book sitting. I've got the steel case and the extra art book that came with it, and the outside cover that's just completely dead at this point. But finding all the old 40k stuff again has been fascinating. I mean, I was playing 40k Darktide, the zombie game.
Yeah.
That they made for it. And it's a lot of fun.
That game crashed my PC.
I was playing it with Ross and I explained, I'm sure we could get Dom on for this, but I don't think he can play the game. I think his PC died trying to play this game. And I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, I think he
fucking hyped
does.
to play it as well.
It's
It dropped on Game Pass, and that day I downloaded it and tried to play it in the PC. I had to put it to low, and even at that, it was not going well.
yeah. I was trying to figure out like what it might be, and it's like because your system's only 6 years old, it shouldn't struggle with it that much. My
Yeah.
PC isn't much younger than that, and it's using slightly older stuff, so there must be something wrong. But I think it is the fact you're dealing with hordes. Like it's trying to give you 50 to 60 to even upwards to like 100 characters on screen coming at you, charging at you, flailing weapons. In it's obviously it's dynamic lighting's built into it. So
Mhm.
I imagine if you've got the ray tracing on, it's a totally different ballgame from what I'm seeing. But if you're trying to calculate all that on a slightly older PC, it will just go, nah, not having it.
Nah, tapping it, dude.
But I was playing that, and weirdly enough, we get into the topic of the 40k lore and universe on stream, and all of a sudden I just become this like fountain of knowledge, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this character says this, and this happens, and then this. We're talking about the Horus Heresy, and out of nowhere, recall the name Mahavastu Kalamakis for one of the Rememberomancers, who's like a side character in one book, and then he just is gone after that. But I remember that name out of nowhere. And it's like, how deep is the 40k stuff just embedded in my soul at this point?
Then again, 40k was from what high school onwards, maybe even in primary school a bit. It's just embedded now every day. Because I remember during IT in second or third year, just looking at the Forge World models that we could never fucking afford at the time, and just going, "Oh, dude, how cool would it be to own a Titan? How cool would it be to own one of those big fucking giant Reaver things?"
One of the most, maybe not heartbreaking moments, but one of the most like soul destroying moments I ever had was I was at Warhammer World, which is the kind of home of Warhammer in the world, because it's it's a UK company that makes it.
Mhm.
And we're there after Games Day, and I've been at Games Day, seen all the tables and stuff, and said, "Oh, we just had other stuff that we'd built, and we didn't really think it was worth taking to Games Day, so we put it in Warhammer World, and people are playing games on these tables, and there's like Titans crashed into the ground, and you're
Yeah.
like, that is a 500 quid model
Yeah.
used as a fucking bit." For a bit of terrain on a board that nobody knows is here. Like if you told me you could play on a table with down Titans, I'd be like, awesome, let's go. I'd
Yeah.
come play a game deliberately to play on that board. And they're like, nah, it's just a fucking throwaway piece. And you're like, why? And I'm like, seriously, why is there a Titan on that board? That's so much money. He goes, nah, it was a miscast. One of the arms was a bit wobbly, so we just threw it in his terrain.
That's a £600 model when you're using it as random pieces.
Literally, if you don't know what we're talking about here, it's literally like take £600, use it as a paperweight. That's all we're talking about here. Take a stack of coins equivalent to £600 in value and use it to hold down a stack of paper. That's all that was happening there. And you're like, well, how are you just fucking around with this much money?
Yeah. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I 100% get what you mean about reading all the lore, because I think everyone who gets maybe a bit of free time and just starts looking at things online. I was just scrolling through some 40k lore, trying to read up on any changes to the Chaos Marines, and I was like, I kind of want to get back into this, but no. If I get back into it, I'm just using my old army. I'm not rebuilding it. I'm not buying new shit because it's far too fucking expensive. And I'm definitely not going back to, because I remember I used to go up every Sunday and play games at GW, and nah, I can't do that shit again.
Yeah,
It's just too much time,
and
too much money.
It's a guess as well that somebody's going to be there with an army that will play a game with you.
Yeah.
If you don't have that community, it's easier to tap into communities now than it was when we were growing up, because you have the internet, you have communities, you've got forums, you've got subreddits, Twitter hashtags and stuff. You could find a gaming community near you. I mean, the last couple of years that I was in the hobby, that was what I did. Was like just going to Google and be like Sterling Gaming Club, and you find that there's a gaming club in Sterling. Remember that place we went to that one time? I think we were there once with like Lee and stuff like that.
Common Ground Games.
Yeah, that place. There was like there was like 2 or 3 clubs all existing out of that. There's like there's always some like historical gaming community somewhere. Like yeah, we rented it at the church hall for the night. We can't be too blasphemous, but we can still shoot French people. And you're like, okay, yeah, sure. I was gonna play Warhammer with the nerds over there, we all smell bad. So
Yeah.
y'all have fun with that. Je suis Napoleon.
Yeah.
Je suis le orc. That was the extent of like I tried going into those communities. That they're interesting. It's always worth it to go at least once to just kind of see what's going on, but you never go back. Every time you go, you're like, I really want to take part in a community event centered around tabletop gaming, and then you go once, you're like, no, I'm not that desperate. I'm not. I'm good, bro. I have other things to do.
Yeah. It's something that I make a point not to do. I like you wanted to start playing D&D, so I started looking into online groups, and I found a group that played using a thing called Roll20. So I jumped on for a couple of games, and I was like, okay, I don't know any of you guys, and you guys are being dicks for no reason, so I'm gonna just jump out because I don't need this. I'll just wait. I think at that point, I think I was about 5 years out from playing Pathfinder, so I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna wait on that.
It's weird how when you're a geek, one of the best things you get to do is geek out with other people. You get to share your little passion with people that understand and appreciate it. And yet, whenever you walk into those communities, it's shit.
Oh yeah, keeping is a fucking major problem because it's just, oh yeah, I've got my friends. This is our safe space. And I remember for a while, because I started playing rugby, I was a jock. I was I was on the outskirts of it. So when I was at one of the MCM Comic Cons, I remember just talking to some people about that, and I had a Scottish Rugby hoodie on, or a Scottish Rugby T-shirt on, and they went, "Yeah, you probably watched it like years after it came out or something." Talking about it. I watched it day one. It's like, "Yeah, sure, you're probably busy at the rugby or something." No, I went to see it at the cinema. Like, talking about some Marvel film or something like that. I was like, "Motherfucker, if you want to get molecular on this, I will talk about the comic that influenced."
I will quote Bible and scripture, son, don't start with me on this.
Yeah,
It's just it is a weird thing that you have this wall between the nerds who want to share their hobby and the people willing to share it with them. And you're like,
yeah,
if I found one of the best communities for 40k online, 40k Radio's community was my like life and soul for years at a time.
Mm.
I miss all those guys dearly, but there's never been anything like that. And I feel like that was lightning in a bottle that you could hang out with these guys, and they were just good people who played a nerdy game with you. And I just don't think that's there anymore, and I don't know how you make that or get it back. It's not. It's one of the things of, it was there, it was beautiful while it lasted, but it's gone now. And unless you know the formula to make it again, you're not getting it back.
And I think at a certain point, if you try and recreate it, it's only going to be a facsimile of what it used to be. So
Oh yeah, I mean, even just like the actual stuff that's happened under the 40k Radio brand since it was all kind of like it's changed hands a couple of times. It's not quite what it used to be. And then like even then you have people arguing which version is the better version. Like, was it better with group 1, group 2? Definitely not group 3. But what about this other group that's the spin-off of like people from the community who made their own thing? And it's like we've lost it. It's not there anymore. We can't get that time back in our lives. So guess you just have to kind of move on. And moving
yeah,
on in today's current social media landscape is not the same as it used to be back then, where you get kicked out of one forum, so you just go start your own forum with blackjack and hookers. Like, you get a better community together. Now it's like, okay, you've been kicked off Facebook, and that subject isn't trending on Twitter, so that's fucked there. So TikTok, I guess, you just don't start your own community anymore. It's just it's on these like 4 or 5 different platforms, and if you're not welcome there, you're not in vogue. Get fucked, I guess.
And that's the weird thing about Warhammer, is kind of clawing it. I say clawing its way to a comeback. It's rocketing its way to a comeback because it's popular. People are showing up out of the woodwork because Henry Cavill said, "Oh, I play Warhammer," and everyone's like, "We all play Warhammer, Henry."
we all played Warhammer, Henry. Where were you? I didn't see you at the con.
Yeah.
It's weird as well that, especially in the UK, how many people that you don't see or you don't expect to have had some contact with it have, oh yeah, I used to play that back in the day. And you're like, you? Okay, like, interesting, but go on. I mean, we had I saw somebody had a Warhammer mug at work, and it turns out it was the friend who's taking the books anyway. But
Hmm.
I was like, immediately, I was like running through a list of, okay, who could this be? Who just outed themselves? Who just fucked up royally? If I walk in there and shout for the Emperor, who's going to have a Twitch reaction and just shout it back? Who grabs a las gun out of nowhere?
Who just slams on a full guardsman gear and runs at you?
But you can. It's interesting. It's one of those like fun little things about it. Again, that's what it comes back to is you enjoy geeking out. You want to share these moments, these experiences, these opportunities, this love you have for this weird thing. And yet, the second someone tries to get involved, it's very kind of standoffish.
Yeah.
I kind of get it. Like when we were growing up, you could get your ass kicked for having the wrong nerdy thing on you, but that's not the thing anymore. It's not who we
Yeah.
are. It's not. It doesn't help either. Like it doesn't help resolve the issue of trying to grow the community and trying to make it more available to people who just want to have fun with their geeky little hobby.
Yeah. I think I kind of go the opposite way now. I'm more just kind of, oh, you want to join in? Feel right. Come on over. My big problem now is just if you get too chummy too quickly. Like, just say, for example, we were doing D&D or something, right?
Yeah.
I ripped the piss at you because I've known you since I was 5 years old. You ripped the piss at me because you've known me since I was 5 years old. This new guy comes in and starts ripping the piss at him. Is he overstepping bounds or is he just getting too familiar too quickly? For me, it's always just, wait till you get to know the group a bit better because there's a fine line between banter and being a dick.
Yeah, I have the thing where I will wait and see. Like I had an issue earlier where I found I was being like getting spam messages through Discord through a server, and I went onto the server and I'm like, I guarantee you that person's not active. Did a little bit of digging first, see if that person's actually there. And no, they're not actually there in the community. They're just on that server. It's a bot. So I digging
Yeah.
around. I find that the spam message is well known, has been in use since 2020. It starts with, "Hey, don't be offended, don't be worried or anything, but I may have reported you on Steam for illegal purchases." And I'm like, illegal? I haven't bought anything on Steam in a month. What are you talking about? And it's also like, hey, getting you to click the link, and all of a sudden there'll be some malware involved. And I went to like contact mods, and I don't know who the mods are. I don't know who's in charge here. So I'll just go in the general chat and ask, hey, can someone point me in the direction of a grown up, please? I mean adults. But that's my way of looking at most social interactions is to be polite and courteous first. And yeah, once you're in, and once you've actually got a bit of rapport going, like lay waste to everyone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
Once you get into that safe, comfortable kind of like, okay, everybody kind of roughly knows where we've all kind of had a feel of where the other people are in the room. Now
yeah,
let's unleash the hounds of hell.
yeah.
But
Now
that's
you
just
can
who we
tear
are.
into the guy for for the fact that he likes chicken over steak, but earn the trust.
Yeah, I it is just, I guess that's just socialization, and I wonder with the way things have been, obviously with the COVID lockdowns and just general people are not as involved in communities as they used to be. I
Mhm.
wonder what the next few years of the internet looks like. I don't imagine it being pretty, but the
No,
next
no.
5 years will be interesting.
I imagine the internet is going to get more feral, like a cat that was brought in for about a week, got used to the good life, then get kicked out. It's just going to become more feral or more lawless. And I'm going to point to a certain group of people because it's going to be their fault. I reckon it's the Americans. 'Cause
Yeah,
the concept of civilization and the concept of being civil is completely lost in the Yank.
it's amazing how much, even just on my own personal experience, I've just turned on the Yanks in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
I was pretty hopeful for a decent amount of time. Maybe America's got some ideas. Now, the more you read up, the more you listen, the more you look at what they're doing, you're like, nah, you ain't got it. I don't know what it is, but you don't have it.
yeah,
And the civility is a part of it, I guess. Don't even
yeah.
know what I want out of a civil conversation, but you don't have it.
Nah. And I
Sorry
think,
to our one American listener, but
yeah.
if you've
Is he
managed
American?
the
No, he's Canadian, isn't he?
no, but there is a listener in Kentucky. I suspect I know who
Oh,
it is, but
oh, cool.
but there's a listener in Kentucky, and sorry, buddy, we're just very apathetic at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's the case of not all Americans. There's a very vocal majority of Americans that just do with a stern talking to from Uncle Britain, but it's just more often. I mean, your general Joe public American probably not want to hold a conversation with. But if they are good Americans, you need to find them.
I remember the jokes when Trump took office in the first time around, and it was something like the Queen offering a one-off opportunity for the US to return to the bosom of Mother Britain.
Yeah.
I,
Britain's lawyers are pouring through trying to find a find something saying like, we own America, right? We can stop them from doing this dumb shit.
Turns out we never actually gave in on that war. So, yeah, you want to come back, just find some paperwork, send it over. We won't really read it. And we'll kick that Trump guy out of office. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I wonder as well, like if that it might be a kind of thing of, hey, they're a pretty new civilization on the block. The American existence, at least for white Americans, is only 400 to 500 years old from the initial landings on the continent, and then they're like less than 250 years old.
Yeah.
As a country. So yeah, they're the new kids on the block.
Yeah, relatively.
Civilizational high, got the military power. And if you look at the history of like ancient Rome, round about now, things are looking pretty good. You're getting a bit boisterous, but at the same time, you've earned your place at the top table. But at the same time, like, it's all downhill from here. And if you're very lucky, you can navigate that landing. If you're not, uh-oh. But I wonder what it's like as maybe this is just our older way of thinking, where we have thousands of years of history as opposed to hundreds of years.
Yeah.
I mean, what do the Chinese think? They've been around for 3,000 years, up to 5,000 years, depending on which interpretation of China you want to use.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's interesting if you have countries that are a bit older and how they view the American thing, but it's always interesting with the different perspectives from that point of view, anyway. But yeah, I wonder how it feels to have that. I mean, if we went back to ancient Europe, and how would it feel as a Gaul or a Celt? How would it feel to be having the Romans next door and they're making all that noise and making all that rah-rah talk? I mean, obviously, the invasion of Julius Caesar's Romans, that changes things very violently. But I wonder what it's like to have, as a Celt, have the Romans over the road, getting a bit noisy and making all their demands and accusations and readying for war all the time.
Yeah, those uppity Romans with their Christ worship.
They're pagan for the most part. It's not until like late into the empire that it gets Christian.
Huh.
Yeah, for the most part they're pagan, and it's who the hell is it? It's Constantine, I want to say, turns them Christian, and then it's not until you get to like there being an East and West empire that it gets really seriously Christian. I want to say it's Justinian, his time in the Roman Empire, where it's like, okay, they're involving the Roman Empire in like political decisions of what happens within the church, and then you've got at the same time you've got the church taking over the western half of the empire's responsibilities, because the western half of the empire disappears, and it's only like Christians left over to kind of organize things. It's like a fascinating point in history, but there's a weird handover period between Christians in the West and the Roman like empire, but then in both empires it becomes kind of synonymous because the Christians kind of work their way at the top. Weird history. It's fun though.
Yeah, so that just shows how little I know about history. Maybe a failing of my public high school education, that history was always, I think our version of history was just, do you want to learn about the Industrial Revolution? No, you're going to learn about it anyway.
Do you want to learn about the Roman, like the very basic part of the Romans in Britain when you're in like primary school, and then it's World War II, then it's, can you memorize a bunch of dates? World War II again. And then maybe if we're feeling spicy, something about, like the Battle of Hastings or the Norman invasions. It's a horrible way of teaching history, and it's why nobody gives a shit. Like, it doesn't matter. And just to use it as a segue, like, this is why I'm such a big fanatic for Dan Carlin's hardcore history. It's because here's the interesting part of history. Here's the fascinating parts. Here's the lessons you can learn from it, which is the important part of history, is that you take a lesson away from it. Because otherwise, there's not really much use to figuring out why things happen the way they do, unless you learn the lesson as to how to avoid it happening again, or how to encourage a situation like that to happen again if you want it to happen to someone else. And just to segue, I listened to him interview Rick Rubin, the music producer, for like 2 hours. Fucking fascinating conversation that had nothing to do with Rick Rubin making music. I mean, if you want to look at somebody who's like a part of history, I assumed that was why he was on the show, to talk about like various artists he'd worked with over the years. Because I mean, that guy is living history. But no, he was on talking about a book that he'd written, called The Creative Act. That he was like, I just want to chat with Dan about it, because it turns out they're just buddies. And I'm like, that would be awesome to read their texts. What does that look like? You know, if Rick Rubin's making a book, I want to see like just his text messages to various people. I think it'd be fascinating. It just the chat they had was all about like a little bit of history. I fucking love that Rick Rubin turns around and says, "Hey Dan, what happened to your show Common Sense? That kind of politics show you do? Where'd that disappear to?" And Dan's like, "I just can't have conversations anymore about current politics. They go nowhere. They mean nothing. They're not actually involved. It's just garbage. We can't actually have conversations anymore." And I'm like, oh, like he's been hinting at that through the episodes of that show for years now. But to have him actually say, I don't have a plan for that show anymore.
Yeah.
Because the situation's so fucked, you're like, interesting. It's funny that it's just funny that Rick Rubin's the person to get that out of Dan. And you're like, huh?
Yeah.
But no, like they're just buddies. They talk about like this it's very kind of like the thing that we wrote it is having a chat about history, art, truth, reality, and how all that factors into how they make their products, how they make albums, or how they make podcasts, or how they write ideas, and how they write books and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And this book, The Creative Act, is about the nature of creativity. And one of the things that Rick sent over to Dan was a couple of criticisms. One that was like a big, very kind of like praiseworthy kind of, oh, we love the book, it's fascinating, it touches on the human condition. And the other one's like, this is just woo-woo nonsense. Like, there's nothing scientific about it, there's nothing helpful in here. It's all very kind of spiritual and Mother Gaia or Mother Creativity or whatever the hell it is. And that's, having listened to the audiobook now, because I've actually went and bought the audiobook on Audible, it is very much that. And it's narrated by Rick Rubin himself, which is interesting because he talked about the fact that he's not used to that. He's the guy behind the mic, helping with the technical side. He's not there on the mic itself. And he said he struggled with doing the voice acting, but his voice is perfect for it because he has this very kind of mellow, calm, zen voice. He's a very zen presence. You know, like, interesting. And funnily enough, there's one time where that changes, and I find it very funny that it happened in this chapter because he's talking about rules and rules for helping encourage creativity. And it goes from very... When I say zen, I do feel like this could be used like a meditation book. There's it's a tubular bell that dings every time he talks. So he'll be giving a lesson or imparting an idea, and the sound comes across. And it's like, obviously very kind of like, and we're breathing, and we cleanse the soul, and we take in the lesson, and it's very kind of odd, and I can see exactly where the woo-woo comment comes in, because I mean, I'd be kind of interested in his technical notes in his diary on what happens to actually make albums that he's worked on. But at the same time, like, I'm happy enough with anecdotal ideas or like just odd things that he's scrapped together over the years, because when we're talking about how to be creative, there is a kind of like, you're catching lightning in a bottle, you're talking about the spark that ignites flames, you're talking about something that isn't a quantifiable thing, because creativity is pulling something out of almost nothing. Some of the most like impressive creative feats are when somebody pulls, for example, Isaac Newton creates calculus. He thinks of how to calculate and how to do an entire new branch of maths, basically pulls the whole thing out of his ass. How do you do that? That is such an insane ability that somebody had. So when you're trying to discuss creativity as a way of maybe thinking, maybe not a way of making money, but as a way of bringing creativity in your life, you do have to get a bit kind of mystical and a bit weird and a bit far out there, and you have to talk in broad concepts about weird, or in broad brushstrokes about weird concepts to get the idea of creativity across, because it's not a tangible thing. But it's an interesting book. I find it interesting. I don't think it's for everyone. Like, it's very much, I'm listening to this because I like the conversation that Dan Carlin had with Rick Rubin, and I'm listening to it because I enjoy hearing about the creative process of other people and creativity and books and art and stuff like that. I enjoy that. But it's, if you were to hand it to, like, say, a lawyer or an engineer, there's a every chance to go, what is the fucking point in this? It's it's an interesting discussion, but it's, you know, I mean, how do you? There's no one way to spur creativity, so there's no real definition, I guess, of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting book.
Yeah. I'm always vaguely interested in those kind of books. For me, it was the thing that kind of sparked off that interest was I was reading Corey Taylor's book, Seven Deadly Sins,
Mm.
thinking it was all going to be uh, autobiographical, kind of talking about his life, and it is to an extent, but most of it is just how he basically wrestled with the fact that he was okay living in sin. Was this isn't what I expected, and like you said, talking about that Rick Rubin book, it was just kind of I'm not here for this. It seems a bit existential, a bit kind of shit. Not really what I'm interested in, and
Yeah.
to an extent, I'm not really. I'll I'll listen to maybe a podcast or I'll watch a video about it, but I'm not really interested in reading a full book about the concept behind being comfortable in sin.
Yeah, it is a bit odd to that. But here's the weird thing: is first of all, have you noticed how powerful Corey Taylor is culturally? He's
Yeah.
everywhere as a rock and metal head. Like he's so ubiquitous that like no matter what radio or whatever station, whatever type of music you listen to, Corey Taylor's there somehow.
Yeah.
And he takes up way more. He's comfortable. He's great to listen to. I love his work as Slipknot. I'm not the biggest fan of Stone Sour, but there's some tracks I like. His solo stuff's interesting because he just seems to have delved into something and just wants to be like doing weird artistic shit himself.
Yeah.
He cameos in places that you don't expect to see him, and it's always good to see him there.
Yeah.
But like I mean, he's so culturally powerful. It's kind of like how is one person dominating all that space around us?
Yeah.
But I think again, like I think his sobriety pointed him in directions, and he just looked at himself, and now he just can't stop looking at himself in a very critical lens, and is now
Yeah.
just kind of like obsessing, and it's making some interesting art for sure. But at the same time, if you're not into that, if you're not into that weird kind of mindset that he probably has,
Yeah.
it's going to be a massive turnoff. It's a total change from
Yeah.
young Corey on stage with Slipknot, running around in a rubber mask screaming for like a couple hours on end.
Yeah.
Which is the Corey that we grew up with. So I'm kind of glad he's matured and can do something else other than that. Because I mean,
Yeah.
that's cool for an 18-year-old. If you're still doing that at 40, seek help.
Yeah. That shit is not sustainable.
Although to be fair, I have heard Slipknot still kick ass on stage, but it's different. It's not quite the same.
I reckon if you're that prolific at a time being that certain person, I don't think that goes away. And I think that is exemplified by Slipknot. I don't think you can go from being one of the heaviest bands on the planet and have that disappear. I think if you've been doing it for as long as they have, it's in there. It's like Mike Tyson training for fights.
Yeah. It's a very good example, actually. Just there was that chat, I think, between him and Joe Rogan, and it's like, Mike still got it. It's there. It's under the surface. There's a little bit of dust on there, but it's there. Although, maybe it's the same thing. Like, the guys in Kiss and Metallica and the Rolling Stones, they could all retire easily. They could have even gone years ago. But like, now, this is who we are. This is what we do, and this is how we make a fuck ton of money.
Yeah,
it probably doesn't hurt the decision making process at all.
Yeah, I mean, it might push it along. Actually, I mean, you look at a lot of bands nowadays, and you're just thinking, there's no chance you're in it for the money. You must just fucking love gigging. Then you look at some support acts that you see, and I'm like, you're absolutely in this for the money. You don't want to go back to fucking Starbucks or whatever the hell it was you were working before.
Yeah, some people have a very desperate fire in them.
Yeah, I don't mean that as a bad thing. You see some support acts that literally can throw themselves into doing sets and stuff, and like, you don't want to go back to your 9 to 5. You're trying your damnedest out there.
Yeah, although there are some times I see people who are, maybe it's just because I'm a bit cynical about social media side of things, I see some very social media savvy types of bands these days. And there's one or two, I won't name names because it's not like a horrible thing, but there's some people who can tell there's a camera on them and we're acting up or are willing to go a little bit further with performances and like moments for fans. It's like, this is brand new. This isn't like you would never see the Rolling Stones or the Beatles do this shit. This is for the Instagram. This is for the moments. This is for the highlight reel or something like that.
Yeah.
It's because everyone has a phone in their pocket, and just a different generation of bands have grown up with an audience that has a phone in their pocket. So they know how to do social media marketing, I guess.
Yeah.
Like they know that if they take an audience member's phone at a gig and sing into it alongside the mic, that immediately is going on at like every social media platform they have, and it's fun for that person because they become like, oh my god, you're the person with that video. But then for the band, it's awesome because can you believe that the band took the guy's phone and just made a mini video for them in the middle of the gig? That's awesome to people online, and it makes that band more popular.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things of like that didn't exist 10 years ago. This is
No,
only a
absolutely.
new thing, yeah. But actually, speaking of music and new things that wouldn't have happened 10 years ago, well, actually, yeah, the actual original version of the song might be about 10 years old at this point.
Yeah.
From an elevator pitch, I have somebody we've talked about in the show before, Jonathan Young. He did a cover version of "Tears Don't Fall," "Bullet for My Valentine," a
Oh
throwback
yeah.
to our childhood, and possibly one of the biggest letdowns in all of music history for me because that band made some of the hardest shit when we were kids, and then
Yeah.
immediately as they got into like the peak, I'd say maybe the peak for them might be like "Scream Aim and Fire."
Yeah.
That opening is jaw dropping. When
Yeah.
just that heavy thud of the double bass drum into just the highest tempo intro to like any one of the songs I've ever done. And then the next album is just this weird, not quite emo, but not quite techno babble. But this
Mm.
Tears Don't Fall cover took me right back in the day with this with with the proper sized fat jeans on, with the fucking Van shoes and the metal t-shirts, just going about town doing fuck all with this on
Yeah.
headphones. And yeah, Tears Don't Fall is probably it's a bit kind of cheesy, cringy, very much a song for a 15 to 18-year-old, but at the same time when it comes on, it's a banger.
Yeah. Not going to turn it away.
And yeah, it's a great cover. Jonathan Young, and he has a cameo on there with somebody whose name I've forgotten. 2 seconds.
It's Anthony Vincent.
Yep, Anthony Vincent. Their cover of it's fantastic, and their vocals are. It's not quite. It's not exactly the same, but I'm now at the point where if somebody's doing a cover, I don't want the exact same thing done again and again. If it happens, it's technically impressive, but if you bring your own spirit into the song, I'm more interested in that.
Yeah.
So that'll be my link for the elevator pitch.
After not having an elevator pitch at the start of the episode, I went and found one, and it's just linked it to you there. It's a podcast. I think it's second week in a row I'm recommending a podcast, but fuck it, I don't care. I'm not original. Don't claim to be. In my potentially never-ending quest to get more Scottish podcasts, Scottish everything in my life, I found this thing with one of my favourite Scottish comedians, Billy Kirkwood. He's the guy with the ET jumper on in the thumbnail picture, as you'll see in the show notes there. And it's basically him and three other comedians, and they will literally watch the worst shit imaginable and then talk about it on a podcast for about an hour and 10 minutes. I think this was the first episode, Masters of the Universe. Then they watched the Star Wars Christmas special.
Oh, we're going down that
then
road, are we? Interesting.
and then the latest episode they watched was Cats. Or the latest film that they watched for the latest episode was Cats.
Right.
And the host, Billy Kirkwood, is one of those guys where you can always find something redeemable about every bad film. More often than not, he still comes down on it. But Cats broke him. So yeah, watch bad movies with great comedians. I think there's only 4 episodes. Fucking hell, there is something fighting its way up through my esophagus. Oh, don't edit that out. I want people to hear me die. I want to pinpoint the exact moment where I keel over. Yeah, definitely go and watch all 4 episodes. You'll catch up in no time because it is short and it is very, very funny.
And this is right up my alley. I love a good bad movie, and I love a good dissection of a bad movie as well.
Yeah, and they actually are, for being comedians, they do get quite in depth on certain topics, despite the fact that it's only an hour long. But yeah, they give it the benefit of the doubt. They're still going to rip the piss out, but they still try and be as fair to the film as possible.
That's good.
It is very Scottish, but
Yeah, it might not be for everyone, but we'll put it out there. and we'll put it out
Yeah,
there.
the subtitles don't keep up with it at some points. So
Oh, YouTube auto-generated like subtitles for Scottish accents are horrible. I
oh yeah,
I make a few YouTube videos every now and again, and when I put my audio in, I do it mostly through Adobe, because I use Premiere Pro, and they have a built-in AI generated series of closed captions, and it's not bad. Sometimes it's wrong, like just objectively wrong. But if you put it into YouTube, you get out something that's just horrible. I give it a go every now and again to see what will happen, just to like have a laugh at the subtitles, and what comes out is just not there. I did not say the word pineapple. I said grenade. I don't know where you
yeah.
got the word pineapple from, but it's fucking grenade.
Ridiculous. I remember watching something on YouTube, and it was a fairly common use Scottish phrase, and it was the phrase "I'm bored at my gourd," which means bored at my mind.
Mm.
And I think the YouTube translated it to "I'm holding my cock."
Well, I mean, typically when I'm bored at my cord, I end up on my cock anyway.
Yeah, I mean the two are not mutually different, but still.
You can find us over on Twitter, holding our cock at Gibberpish, or you can reach out to us on an email just at gibberpishpodcast@gmail.com. You'll hear from us soon, hopefully. I've got some stuff coming up. I'll be going to see Beast in Black this Friday, probably before this episode comes out. Maybe, we'll see. But also, I have the stuff coming out with Commander Roscoe. I'm going to just plug this because it's this is probably the last episode we record before he finishes publishing all the videos. We played a hentai game and just sat there doing the voices for it and just laying into the characters and ripping the piss out of it. And it's one of the most fucked up things I've ever done, but probably the most fun I've had making one. We're nearing the end game of that. There's like 16 episodes total. Episode 10 came out today, and episode 15 we left that defeated, and I mean physically broken.
I will say that I have watched episode 1. I would highly recommend it. It is some unhinged shit, and I'm not talking about Colin and Ross's their interpretation of it. It is just a weird fucking.
You can't predict where this is going.
No.
The game has some things to say on the nature of content and games and hentai and perverts, and you're sitting there being like, I just finished this game twice and I'm being criticized for it. Fuck you.
Yeah.
But it's a fun ride, and it drove us to the depths of insanity, and I would highly recommend, if you've got the stomach for jokes about unbelievable quantities of jizz, you should check out that on the Commander Roscoe YouTube channel. It's been an absolute blast making it, and I can't believe it's finally coming out. But yeah, yes, until then, I've been Colin Graham.
I've been Dom Anderson.
And we've been talking Gibberpish.